All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith. I count it truly blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to preach the word of God. Never do I count it as a light thing to do so. I know I'm on a little late this evening. I didn't come on yesterday. I was up to after 3 o'clock in the morning working, so I just wasn't able to come on yesterday. But I'm here now, and I was just going to answer some questions. Usually I try to do it. I've been trying to do it on Sundays. Answer some questions that people have. So what I'll do right now is I'll answer some questions. Before I do that, I just want to remind everybody that we meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that's every Sabbath, which is Saturday, at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana. Peace to you. Peace to you. And with that, I want to go right into the questions. So I guess I'll deal with this one real quick. Zion asked a question about, peace to you, asked a question about long hair. And so, you know, there's the notion you see oftentimes in Christianity. I'm not saying that brother's coming from that perspective, but he just asked a question about long hair. Peace to you, Brother Isaiah. Can you have long hair? And the reason he said that is because of what Paul wrote. So we're going to go read what Paul wrote and get some understanding pertaining to Paul's writing. And it'll become clear, Lord willing. So we are in, let's see. Give me 1 second. All right. Let's see. That's I've even heard, this is 1 Corinthians 11. I've even heard Israelites say that, you know, that you can't have long hair. Somebody got on this page and said that you can't have locks. Braids are okay, but you can't have locks. You know, they said, what prophet had locks? Then I showed them, like I'll show you today, where there's a prophet with locks, and then they had a problem with that. But anyway, that was just, you know. But I'm in 1 Corinthians 11th chapter, and I want to pick it up at verse, let's see. Pick it up at verse 14. Okay, verse 14. It says, you know, just read it. We're reading it almost like in a vacuum. It says, doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him? Okay, so now people have taken that verse and said that a man can't have long hair. Okay. He said, doesn't it tell you that it's a shame to him? Now, it doesn't say that here. Okay. It says, but doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him? Now, on the surface, it seems, okay, that's, so it must be sin. Okay, well, we should ask the question, what is sin? Okay, so let's just make it creepy real simple. We'll hold our finger here. We'll go to 1 John 3 and 4, because we're going to come back here and read something else. Before 1 John 3 and 4, it says, whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law. Okay, transgresseth means to break. All right, so whosoever committed sin transgress the law, also the law. For sin is the transgression of the law. Peace to you, brother. So when you break the law, you have sinned. Now my question is, where in the Torah, the instruction that he gives, do you find where it says a man cannot have long hair? It's not there. So it's not sin. That's number one. Now let's go to the Torah, okay, and find out what it does say pertaining to long hair. This is I want to pick it up in Numbers, because it says it does not need to teach you, right? We should understand Paul is talking to who? He's talking to the Gentiles. Okay, so now this is Numbers. We want to pick it up in Numbers 6, and we want to pick it up at verse 1. Numbers 6 and verse 1. Now, if we got a contradiction here, if this is the case, if having long hair for a man is a sin, Numbers 6 and 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When either man or woman shall separate themselves to vow a vow of a Nazarite, to separate themselves unto the Lord, he shall separate himself from wine and strong drink, and shall drink no vinegar or wine or vinegar of strong drink, neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat moist grapes or dry. All the days of his separation shall he eat nothing that is made of the vine tree, from the kernels even to the husk. Okay, so he wasn't supposed to drink wine, deal with grapes. Okay, he or she, it says here, the Nazarite. Then it says something. All the days of the vow of his separation, there shall no razor come upon his head. Wait a minute. If no razor is coming upon your head, you're not cutting your hair. Then it says, until the days be fulfilled in the which he separated himself unto the Lord, he shall be holy, and shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow. Now, I don't want this to be misconstrued. Is this saying that every man or woman that has long hair is a Nazarite? No, because this is a particular vow. But it is, you have to really think about what's being said. How is it a sin to have long hair, or wrong to have long hair, if the Lord has people separated from everybody else to take a vow of separation that had long hair? They could, that not just long hair, wouldn't cut it all the days that they had that vow. That doesn't make any sense, brothers and sisters. Let's go to Judges real quick, because we're going to go back to 1 Corinthians. Let's go to Judges. I'm going to pick it up in Judges. And we're going to pick it up in chapter 13. And here we read about a judge who was a mighty judge, Samson. Judges 13 and verse 5. Now, what's told to concerning him? I'll pick it up in verse 2. And there was a certain, Judges 13 and 2, and there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bare not. Right, so she couldn't bear children, or until that time. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman and said unto her, Behold, now thou art barren and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son. Right, so you'd be surprised what the Lord can do. There's no limits to him. It said, now therefore be. So you don't have to go to, go through, you don't necessarily have to go through these means to where you're actually committing abortions or performing abortions trying to bring forth a child. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine nor strong drink. That should sound familiar. That's in number 6. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head. For the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Okay, so now this is, he's going to be a deliverer, this Samson, and what he would have to took the vow of a Nazarite. Let's go to 1 Samuel. Okay, I just want to make it plain, because that doesn't make any sense if you can't have long hair, what he's telling you, certain people separated holy, supposed to be holy before God. Then a separation, they can't drink and they let their hair grow. Let's go to 1 Samuel. And we want to pick it up with 1 Samuel. And we want to pick it up at let's see. First Samuel. My 1 Samuel 9th chapter. Okay, so now this is Hannah. Hannah is Samuel's mother. Samuel was a mighty judge of Israel. He anointed the first two kings of Israel. Let's see what it said about him. 1 Samuel 1 and verse 9, it says, so Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh, and after they had drunk. Now Eli the priest sat upon a seat by a post of the temple of the Lord. And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed unto the Lord and wept sore. Why? Because she wanted a child, a son. She didn't have it. She was barren. It says, and lo, it says in verse 11, and vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid and remember me and not forget thine handmaid, but wilt give unto thine handmaid a man child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. That should sound familiar. We just read it in number 6. We read it in Judges 13. We read the law of the Nazarite in number 6. We read an example of a Nazarite, which was Samson. Now we read about another Nazarite who was Samuel. And we know Samuel was righteous. Now let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke. Still hold your finger in 1 Corinthians. We haven't forgotten about that. Well, I haven't forgotten about it. Let's go to Luke. And we want to pick it up at Luke chapter 1. And we want to pick it up at verse 15. Luke chapter 1 and verse 15. It says, now this is pertaining to John the Baptist, who came in the spirit of Elijah. Okay. This is Luke 1 and verse 13. It says, but the angel said unto him, fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son. So again, a woman who was barren, now she was up in age. They both were up in age, well beyond the age you would think normally you could have a child. But again, there are no limits to what God can do. Just like Sarah and Abraham, there's no limit to what God can do. So it said, and thou shalt have joy and, verse 13 again, it says, but the angel said unto him, fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. And thou shalt have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth, for he shall be great in the sight of the Lord. Jesus said, a man born of women, there's no greater prophet than John the Baptist. The Bible, the Old Testament prophesies of John the Baptist coming in the spirit of Elijah. He said, for he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink. And he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost, even from his mother's womb. Now, what is that? Again, that's that. Here you have one who seems to have taken, he's going to be a Nazarite. But now let's go to Ezekiel. Okay, this is Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel. And we want to pick it up. Give me 1 second. I want to pick it up in Ezekiel, the 8th chapter. Because here you got these men of God, or the God is using, and they got long hair. Now we just read more than likely John the Baptist, certainly Samuel, Samson, who was delivering the people, even though he did some things that were wrong. Ultimately, he had the vow of Nazarite, which you have long hair. This is Ezekiel the 8th chapter, and here we have the prophet of the Lord, and it says something, and it says in verse 3, and he put forth the form of an hand and took me by a lock of mine head, and the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate, and that looketh toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. Now, this is the prophet of God, and what happened to him? The Lord took him up by a lock of his head. It clearly says lock. It don't say braid, it says lock. Right? Now, again, so now we see these men, we saw these men that God was using. We just saw Samson, more than likely John the Baptist. We saw Samuel. We see the Nazarite vow, but then we see the one Ezekiel who had locks. Okay. Now, Ezekiel had locks. And you can read other examples of men that had locks, brothers and sisters. There are more examples in the scriptures. But let's go someplace else. Let's go to, and we read what sin was, right? Sin is a transgression of the law. There's no law saying a man can't have long hair. If you, as a matter of fact, if you look at the Lachish reliefs of Israel, right? You look that depict, when you look at the reliefs that depict, when you look at the reliefs that depict captivity, and you see what appear to be Israelites going into captivity in Babylon in 586 BC, as well as those reliefs that depict Israel going into Assyrian captivity. You see people Israelites have long hair. So archaeology tells you that they had long hair, right? And you can read over and over and over again about them having long hair. I just read an example how the prophet had long hair. The Nazarite, they had long hair. So can a man have long hair? Now let's go back to, we haven't forgotten, 1 Corinthians 11th chapter. 1 Corinthians 11th chapter. Peace to you, Brother Austin. I'm going to answer your question along with another question once I get into that one. I hope you're doing well. Peace to you. 1 Corinthians 11th chapter and verse, where am I at? Oh, yeah. It says in verse, let's see, 14. It says, doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him? But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given her for a covering. But if a man seem to be contentious, we have, now listen. So understand who he's talking to. First of all, he's talking to Gentiles, okay, who had different customs, right? So he's talking about what it taught them. But that's not the custom of Israel. That wasn't the custom of Israel. So what could be not customary amongst one people doesn't mean it's customary amongst another people. And Paul is talking to another people. But at the same time, that being said, it's not a sin, right? So he said, and again, a lot of times with Paul's writing, you're not, well, almost in every case, you're not privy to what you're not reading specifically the question of what he's responding to, okay, and what the situation is. So it says, but if any man seem to be contentious, we have no such custom, neither the churches of God. So you got to keep reading, right? So the question is, what is sin? Is it a sin for a man to have long hair? You can't find that in the Bible. Even though that's preached in Christianity, even our Hebrews even say, well, you can't have long hair, but clearly is examples of that throughout the scripture. There's no Torah telling you can't. All right, so that's that. Now I want to deal with another question, and it's a simple question. Okay, and let's see, let's go to the question. It says, this is from Sinai. Can you make your own unleavened bread with water, flour, and olive oil? Okay, well, let's go. And then the brother had the question, Brother Austin. It's a good brother, good young brother that he's in school for computer engineering, and came up and was baptized not too long ago. So, you know, that's a good young brother. He's trying to deal with the word. But let's see. So the question is, his question. Well, two questions. One says, can you make your own unleavened bread with water, flour, and olive oil? Okay. So let's go to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. All praise the Most High, brother. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, and verse. I just want to read it in verse 6. It says, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. Okay, so now the question is being asked because feasts are coming up, right? So now, unleavened bread is bread that doesn't have leaven in it. Leaven is what makes bread rise. Leaven represents sin, malice, false doctrine, those things that are going to prevent you from doing what thus saith the Lord, right? So you have to cast a symbolic of what we need to do spiritually and cast out all the leaven in our lives and eat the uncut, unadulterated word of God. That's why you got to get the leaven out. Okay. So just to show you that, let's go to Exodus, the 13th chapter real quick. Exodus, the 13th chapter, in verse 7, it says, unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee, neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters. And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, this is done because of that which the Lord did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be for a sign unto thee upon thine hand, and for a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. See, but if you got leaven, you didn't adulterated it, right? That's where the false doctrine comes in. So that's ultimately what it's pointing to. Now, can you make unleavened bread with leaven? I mean, excuse me, with not with leaven, but with flour and olive oil and water. First of all, let me say this: I don't cook. Okay, so that's number one. But if you look at the recipes, that's a lot of times that's what they use. Now, what you gonna get, how you make that recipe, that's not for me to answer. Okay, but I want to make it clear to somebody else that well, number one, obviously you can make your own unleavened bread, but number two, I want to be clear. I want to touch upon something as far as the yeast. Okay, because that's a big thing. So sometimes when you talk about leaven, you want to get those things that are leavening agents, and sometimes people think, oh, well, yeast is in all kind of things, but is it an active yeast? Is it a yeast that's gonna make something rise, or is it for flavor? Right? So sometimes it's not making anything rise, therefore it's not leaven. Okay, so I want to point that out too, because sometimes people have that question. But yes, so if that's what you want to do, you don't want to buy the unleavened bread. You can go and you can look on the internet, and I'm sure sisters have made all kinds of videos on how to make unleavened bread, if that's what you want to do. Okay. But yes, I believe that's how a lot of times that's what they use. That's one recipe. Okay. Now the next question, brother Austin had a question. He said, peace, brother, is the day of Passover a Sabbath day? Do we refrain from doing servile work? Okay. So now one thing about it is let's go to hold on one second. Give me 1 second. Because the day of the Passover, brothers and sisters, is a let's show you this real quick. The day of the Passover is a day of preparation. Okay. If you notice, just something, let's go to Matthew the 26th chapter. Matthew 26 and verse 1. And it shall come to pass when Jesus had finished all these sayings, again in Matthew 26 and verse 1, he said unto his disciples, you know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified. That's not by coincidence, because he's our Passover lamb. So just like they came under the blood of the lamb, you have to come under the blood of Christ. And what do you have to do? They ate unleavened bread and walked out of bondage. You must eat the uncut, unadulterated word of God. You must consume it and walk according to it and walk out of the bondage that we have been in bondage to. We've been in bondage to death. See, the feast days, people celebrating Christmas and Easter, which are pagan, but the feast days that are written of in Scripture point out the plan of salvation for man. And it explains it in what the things that you're supposed to do. Again, come under his blood, eat the uncut, adulterated word of God, and walk according to it. That's why they had to leave immediately with their shoes on, their loins girded, their staff in their hand. They walked out of Egyptian bondage. That's not by coincidence, brothers and sisters. And Jesus came and died on the Passover. He is our Passover lamb. He is without blemish and without spot, just like the Passover lamb had to be. He was without sin. He was sacrificed. No bone was broken of the Passover lamb, just like his bone wasn't broken. See, it's all pointed to him. But so now he died on that very day, on the Passover. Okay. So now let's go to give me 1 second. Matthew 27. And just the verbiage or the adjective is used there. Verse 62. It says, now the next day that followed the day of the preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees came together unto Pilate. See, it's a day of preparation. Okay, let me go to another place. 1 second. Give me 1 second. Look at some John. Okay, let's go to John the 19th chapter. Again, it's the same verb. John the 19th chapter in verse 31. It says, in verse 30, actually, when Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, it is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. Okay, so he died. What day was this? We read in Matthew the 26th chapter, right? That it says, you know that in verse 2, you know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified. So in verse 31, it says, the Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation, that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that day wasn't high day. Now you think about all the stuff they were doing. Now they couldn't have him on the Sabbath, what they call the Sabbath, because that next day is a feast of unleavened bread. That's the day you had to hold a holy convocation. That first day and that seventh day. All those other days are days in the feast of unleavened bread. Those 7 days, the first day you have a holy convocation, and the seventh day you have a holy convocation, which you don't do any servile work. Okay, meaning you don't go on your job. But the Passover, you see, they doing all kinds of they were doing different things on this day. It's a day of preparation. It's a day that you prepare. Okay, that's why they call it preparation, because you're really preparing for the feast. The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day that was coming up, which was was the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For that day was an high day. That's what it's talking about. And we're going to go back and read in Leviticus. Pilate besought Pilate that their legs might be broken, that they might be taken away. Verse 33, but when they came to Jesus and saw that he was dead already, they break not his legs. Why? Because you couldn't break the leg or you couldn't break any bones of the Passover. Let's go to Exodus, just to show you that. Exodus 12, I believe, is verse 34. No, wait, hold on. Exodus, hold on one second. Let's see. This is not Exodus 2. Let's see. We're in Exodus. I said 34. It's actually Exodus 12 and 46. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth out of the flesh abroad out of the house. That's referring to the Passover lamb. Neither shall ye break a bone thereof. Okay. Now let's go to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. I know this goes beyond your question, but I just want to, so that people have understanding. Okay. So now this day, Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, in verse 4, it says, these are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. So now he's talking about these days that are holy gatherings, right? Which you shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. Okay. So you take the Passover on that day. Now, can you do servile work? It doesn't say that you can't do servile work on the Passover. It's a day of preparation. Notice what they were doing. They were crucifying people on that day. I mean, they were going about their daily, not saying they didn't keep the Passover. The rest of the people didn't keep the Passover. They kept the Passover. But you saw the things that they were doing. And then they say, hey man, it's a preparation. We got prepared for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is a high day. So they had, because that's the day when you have to it says in verse 6, and on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread unto the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. And it says in verse 7, in the first day ye shall have an holy convocation, a holy gathering. Ye shall do no servile work therein. But that's on the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And on the 7th day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Okay. It don't say it's not. So the Passover, yes, you technically can. You don't have to, but you can. What you have to do is take the Passover on that day, that evening. Okay. That when it comes in, that's what you do. You take the Passover. You eat some of that unleavened bread and you take that wine and unleavened bread. You making it with flour and water, or you going to your Costco and getting you some mozzos, whatever, however you do it. That's what you're supposed to do. But yeah, you can technically work on that day. It's the next day. You don't want to do any servile work, which you can work for the feast, because obviously if you're cooking and doing all these things, but you don't want to do anything in regard to like servile, meaning on a job. All right, next question. My brother Eula had a question. That brother called and he left a message. Peace to that brother. I don't know if he's listening or not, but I'll let him know. Peace to you, brother Sanders. He asked a question. He was confused, or he just wanted to get clarity on the light in Genesis. What is that light? Okay. So in Genesis, and then you see later on in Genesis about the sun and the moon. What a lot of people don't understand about Genesis 1 and 1 is that it is separate from Genesis 1 and 2. And what I mean by that is when Moses is writing this, his objective is not to tell you necessarily or per se how long ago this was. Okay. His objective is to tell you what God did, right? And then he goes right into the creation of man. So he says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. How long ago that was? Scientists say it was 13.77 billion years ago. The Bible is not telling you it was 6,000 years ago that the earth was created. This verse is separate from the next verse. And it says, and the earth was without form and void. You don't know how great a time difference that was from when he created. And we know that one who created it was none other than Jesus before he was manifested in the flesh. That's why it tells you in John 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Okay, and the Word made flesh and dwelt among us. We know that it tells you that on Hebrews 1, Colossians 1, and in John 1, that Jesus created the world. So it says in the beginning, of course, the Father was there, but he created it through his Son. It said in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Okay, how long ago that was? Could be billions of years ago. You don't know. It wasn't 6,000 years ago, brothers and sisters. It's not, and it's not telling you that. That's how people get that confused. These are separate. Verse 2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So now, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So now there was a time when this earth was submerged in water. Okay. So the earth is submerged in water, but what happens? It says, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Where is light coming from? The light's coming from the sun. So you'd be like, but I thought the sun was created in verse 14. What's happening is this is what's taking place after the earth that's submerged in water, and that sun is penetrating the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light that was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So now there's this separation. Okay? So you got, even when you got the heaven of heavens, you got a big body of water, you got space, then you got, the earth. So it doesn't tell you what was going on. And that's not really his intent per se. Is he's telling you what happened, but it's not as far as time span in regard to how long ago the earth was created. No, but that earth, that light is coming from the sun. I know it reads like you said, wait a minute, but he made the sun. What he's doing is these things are becoming visible. These things are becoming visible. So when you read in verse 14, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens, these things are becoming visible from the earth that was submerged in water. Not that they were created right then. So it says, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Because even when you look at verses 9 through 13, things are starting to grow. That light is coming from the sun. And these things are now becoming visible from the earth. And that's what he's doing. So that's what that light is, right? Physically, that's what that light. Spiritually, we know that the light of the world is the Messiah, the Mashiach. That's lighting our path of salvation. He's the light of the world, right? So man will come out of darkness, which is sin and spiritual lack of understanding. Okay, so I hope I answered that question. Now this brother, somebody else had a question. Hold on 1 second. Real quick, Kamara, if I'm mispronouncing your name, I apologize. A question: is there any scriptural reason for the way people are buried oriented in the east-west position? Think the head is always facing east. If it is, I haven't found it. Let's see. So the brother said, can you explain? Well, which one was correct? Kamara? Is that correct? Kamara. Kamara, is that right? When I'm waiting on the answer, I'm going to answer this Psalms 81 and verse 7. Okay. So it says, I don't know. I don't know of any. Maybe you can enlighten me on that. I don't know of any scripture pertaining to that. Let's see. So since since you answered questions, can you break down Psalms 81 and 7? You say since I answer questions, I don't just do it for fun. If people got a question, I answer the questions. People like contacted me with those questions. And let's see. So in verse 7 of 81, it says, "Thou callest in trouble, and I delivered thee. I answered thee in the secret place of thunder." Oh, I see what you're saying. I answered thee in the secret place of thunder. I proved thee at the waters of Merrillville. Okay, so who he's talking to is he's talking to his people. Okay, so let's just read it from the first verse. It says, "Sing along unto God our strength. Make a joyful noise unto the God of Jacob. Take a psalm and bring hither the timbrel, and pleasant harp with the psaltery." Then he said, so why are you doing that? Hold your finger there. Just so we know, go to Exodus the 15th chapter real quick. Exodus the 15th chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse, let's see. Verse 20. "And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing ye to the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea." Okay, so he's talking, so he's calling you to worship God, who is worthy to be praised and worshiped for all that he has done. So he says in verse 3, "Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed, and on our solemn feast day. For this is a statute for Israel and a law of the God of Jacob." So what is he talking about? This is a statute, what you're supposed to do. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. We were just there. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. And we want to pick it up at verse 24. It says, in verse 24, it says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month and the 1st day of the month shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial blowing of trumpets, and a holy convocation." Right? So there's another feast day. Then it said, "Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord." Right? 26, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation. Unto you, ye shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord." Verse 36, 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the 8th day, that's the Feast of Tabernacles, ye shall be a holy convocation unto you. Ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly. That's that 8th day. And ye shall do no servile work therein. Now, verse 4. "For this is a statute for Israel and a law of the God of Jacob. This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I heard a language that I understood not." Okay. So then he says, hold on one second. He says, verse 5, "This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I heard a language that I understood not." Then he said, I removed his shoulder from the burden. His hands were delivered from the pots. Okay, so what he's talking about, how he delivered his people from bondage. He said that thou calledest in trouble, and I delivered thee. Exodus, let's go to Exodus, let's go to Exodus, the 2nd chapter. Exodus, the 2nd chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 23. It says, and it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. So he remembered the covenant that was made all the way. If you go all the way back to Genesis and go to the 15th chapter, where he tells them in 15 and 13, and he said unto Abram, who was Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. He's talking to Abraham. He said, thou shalt be buried in a good old age, but in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Verse 7, thou callest in trouble, and I delivered thee. That's what it's talking about. He said, I answered thee in the secret place of thunder. I proved thee at the waters of Merrillville. So what he's talking about there, in verse 18, 19 and 18. Verse 19 and 18. And Mount Sinai was altogether on the smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded loud, long, and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. Okay, so that's what that's talking about. He says, and then it goes on to say, I proved thee or tested thee at the waters of Merrillville. Let's go to Exodus, the 17th chapter. It says in verse 1, and all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people did chide with Moses, and said, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water. See, this, these are some Negroes. Thirsted there for water, and the people murmured against Moses and said, wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? You see the mindset of people? Now the Lord gave this mighty deliverance, and you murmuring, right? So Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, what shall I do unto this people that they may be almost ready to stone me? So ultimately he smote the rock. Water came out in verse 7, and he called the name of the place Massa and Merrillville, because of the chiding of the people, of the children, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Okay. So that's that. I don't know if you really had a question or not. You said thank you because I don't know if you really had a question or not, but that's Psalms 81 and verse 7. I don't know what I don't even understand the response, but That's what 81 and 7 means. I'm gonna answer this next question that this will actually address this next issue. This is from Ash Smith. She said, from Detroit. She had an issue again when I said marriage. I said in the Bible, marriage was either monogamous. We had one man, one wife, like Isaac and Rebecca, or you had men who had several wives or more than one wife that practiced polygyny. That's the Bible. And understand, these systems are neutral. But she had an issue. She said, it's just if God wanted men to have more than one wife, then wouldn't he have clarified this information right from the beginning? Why do you say that? Not necessarily, because clearly in the Torah, he never condemns it and he regulates it. So that has nothing to do with what he allows. Deuteronomy, rather, the 21st chapter. And Yeshua's disciple, you need to remove all leaven from your house. Anything with leaven in it. A lot of your cakes, your breads, things like that. All right. Deuteronomy 21:15 again. It's clearly written. If a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both of them beloved. And both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be when he maketh his sons inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved the firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he hath. For he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. So what we need to understand, let me say this. I just deal with what the word of God says in this regard. It's clearly saying it's not condemning. It actually regulates the practice. That's number one. Number two, that's still practiced in certain parts of the world. And it certainly was practiced in Africa and the so-called Middle East, which is just an extension of Africa. When you look at it geographically, that certainly was practiced. You don't practice monogamy today because of the Bible. You practice it because of what was imposed by the so-called church, the Roman Catholic Church, and what was going on in the Western world. You don't practice it because of your own culture. You don't practice it because of what the Bible says, because the children of Israel were certainly polygynous. I'll refer you back to the census that Moses took, and you look at it, and the households were massive. Okay, indicating there was polygyny. Moses himself, who wrote the Torah, more than likely was polygynous. He was married to Zipporah. Then it says he married an Ethiopian woman. It doesn't say Zipporah died. Also, what we need to understand is what the Lord put forth as far as women goes. Oftentimes we read, the woman is a helpmeet to the man, which is true. We also read that the man is the head of the household, which is also true. But what people fail oftentimes to really look at is that the Lord has protection for women. Okay, so first and foremost, a man is supposed to work. That was put on Adam, right? And he's the head, the spiritual head, right? So a woman will go from her father as her father. Her father will be her protection, her spiritual head, until right directly to her husband, and he would be her spiritual head. And then if a man died, if her husband died, what did he have in place? He had the liberate law, which was what? You would be married by a close kin, like in the case when you read about it in the book of Ruth, and what Boaz did. While she was out there gleaning the fields, and then her husband had died, he took a, you constantly see he has a system in place to take care of women. That's what he have in place. Polygyny, righteous polygyny, if it's done righteously, it's not. If you think it's all about men, how in the or some sexual need, how in the world is about that when you got all the responsibility? All polygyny is neutral. It's only going to pull out what you already are. That's what it is. And a lot of times you see, like I saw somebody say, "What's a Western woman?" and they were laughing. I guess it was a sister talking about what's a Western woman. What you see today, women who certainly don't operate according to what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a wife. See, for them, polygyny is a threat because you're not operating in what a wife really is. You doing whatever you see fit and going contrary to the order. But if you really understand still what a wife was, and you were operating according to that, ain't no replacing you. Because that's the thing. Oh, I'm gonna be replaced. When in the actuality, you probably ain't married in the first place. I'm not talking about the sister that asked the question. I'm talking about in general. Why? Because numerically, they have a saying: it's mathematics. There's not enough women for men, particularly amongst our people. When you look at the higher education, and the higher the education goes for Black women, the lower their chances of getting married. So you look at the men who are incarcerated, the men who are homosexual, the men who are not in a position to hold down a household because of lack of education or lack of employment or lack of entrepreneurship. You see a number of women who don't have a husband and won't be married. But talking about polygyny, see, that's why even outside of the culture of the Israelites, that's oftentimes why it was used. It was used to address certain issues. For example, if you look at the birth rates of men and women, the birth rates of men and women are approximately 50-50. 50%, they're not born, but at birth, women are stronger and have a higher survival rate than boys. Then boys or males are more likely to die, and they even live shorter period of years. So if you look at a place that has been war torn, for example, what you're gonna have is a lack of males. Right? When you look at the so-called Negro in this country, what you see is a bunch of households. 70% of children are born outside of wedlock, so they're illegitimate children. I know we don't like that language, but that's the reality. So they're born outside of the confines of marriage. And you have males just establishing households and not being responsible. Nobody is saying anything about this for the most part. So it's hypocrisy is what it is. But ultimately, the Lord regulates it. See, when you go on that job and that Caucasian male boss tells you to do something, you don't have no questions, you just do it. When you at home and mama said do something, you just did it. You might get smacked in your mouth if you didn't. Right? So you just do it. But when God says something, he regulates something, we have a problem with it. That's all emotional. We're not dealing in rational. I'm not telling you to do one thing or the other. I'm just telling you what the book say. So it said, what's all this faithfulness that he speaks of throughout the word, his word? What you think is how do you? So now you're questioning God's faithfulness, which now you're in dangerous terrain. I would not have the audacity to sit here and question God's faithfulness as if he's not faithful. We clearly saw what he did for his people. Is he only saving that one people? No, he's not a respecter of persons. Even when you look at him called like I've read it, first time I addressed it, you look at the parable describing him as the bridegroom, and then you had 10 virgins. And when the bridegroom come, guess what? He was marrying all 10. That's polygyny. He never had it. And again, when you look at what he had in place for women in regard to how the culture was and the laws, like you look at the vows. A husband or a father can override the vow that a woman made to God. Why? Because he's the spiritual. It's about, he has the protection there. He says, why does he want to be our only God? And why does he gets jealous? See, he never had it to where a woman was supposed to be dealing with a bunch of men. The church is likened to the relationship between a man and his wife. And he is the husband. The church, the people are his bride. So you shouldn't be going with dealing with other husbands. That's just the reality. All this points out to me how he wants to share with no other. I don't. He says, so why would he want us to share mates? Again, he built the nation on one woman and one man and 4 women, and regulates the practice. So now if you have an issue with what God has written in his word, I don't know what to tell you other than the actual practice. When practice, if you well, because we're dealing in emotion, but if you actually read and study on the issue, this is not for the benefit of men per se, in regard to just men alone. Because if you want to just talk about women, isn't what men are doing right now, men and women sleeping together right now with no covenant, and then having baby, and then y'all want to throw a baby shower? What? That's not right what they're doing. And then they just had this baby. How is that okay? Or two men and 2 women get married, which is impossible. That's acceptable. But some kind of way this is not, and people shocked and taken aback when that's actual marriage, according to the word of God. But we rather see some famous basketball player and his wife and celebrate they son or his son at the gay pride parade. This world is ready to be consumed in fire, brothers and sisters. So he said it doesn't add up to be this guy who likes everything to himself. You sound, again, I wouldn't be sitting questioning what God is regulating and God is saying in his word. Question in the sense of again, for all the people who have an issue with it, none of them are practicing monogamy. Monogamy is extremely rare. You're not even practicing it. Not saying you, I'm just saying people in particular is not being practiced. And when I say that, let me be specific. People are not practicing monogamy. Monogamy is one man, one woman for life. What you Negroes are doing, and what Negroes are doing, and Mexicans are doing, and Chinese are doing, and everybody's doing is one man, one woman at a time with somebody on the side. So you start having these partners, sexual partners, a lot of times 17 years old for women, 16 a little under that for men. So now you got a partner. And now you go to the next partner and the next partner. Then you go to college and get buck wild. And then you have all these partners. So by the time you look up, you may have had one child, or You may be looking to get married, and you're looking up, and you might say hypothetically you do get married, and you talk about, oh, I'm married to that person. That's monogamy. That is not actually monogamy. It's like a serial monogamy. That's not true monogamy. You just had all these partners. What are you talking about? You're not practicing that. But in the scriptures, what he had was women. First of all, women were under their father's roof, cared for by their father, would be married to a man. Okay? They were supposed to be virgins. They were supposed to have all these partners. And he had even something in place in case if somebody jumped the gun in that regard, so to speak. So it wasn't. And then you see in instances women being cared for. It's a cultural thing too. It's not what you see here in the Western world. But all this girl rocks, women are actually, if you look at what's going on morally, women are in a terrible situation. Why do I say that? Look at abortion rates. Look at infidelity rates. Look at illegitimacy rates. Look at the rate of mental illness. Look at the relationships between men and women and how they are, particularly our people, it's war. It's straight up war. So everything's upside down. Households are upside down. Morals are upside down. I was shopping today, and I don't go too many places in regard. I was shopping today. I'm talking grocery shopping, and I look and I see a young lady. I mean, it's a mother and her teenage daughter. Her daughter it's 60 degrees, and everybody acting like it's 115 degrees. So she got a shirt on that's showing all of her stomach. Why are we seeing your navel? That's the daughter, but you with your mama. What's going on? Then I'm pushing my cart, and the bro walked past me. His woman looked like they going to the club, but you in the grocery store. Why you dressed like that? With a skirt about this short, this short. Like, why? What's that? With a split on the side. I'm like, how you with your probably not a husband, dude, a guy she with at the moment. What's going on? That's normal. That's normal. All this stuff that's going on is normal. Having these kids outside of wedlock is normal. But having legitimate marriages, people looking at that, scratching their head like, no, but they claim to be the people that's written of in Scripture. Something wrong. Something wrong. It's because we're dealing with a mindset that was given to us. We're not dealing with actually with what's written and what people were doing culturally. And I'm not saying, again, it's not me saying you should go do that. What I am saying, I want to be clear about that, and I stay firm on that. I don't care what nobody say. You get in trouble when you go to the Bible and try to change what's written. Just like you get in trouble when you say, well, I got a problem with God because I don't like this. You got a problem. All right. Because your ways not his ways, your thoughts not his thoughts. So if he's regulating something, it is what it is. This is the last question because it's almost 12 o'clock. I ain't ate dinner yet. It said, I know we have not seen or heard the voice of the Father, St. Matthew 5:37. However, what means Deuteronomy 18, verses 18 through 19? So Deuteronomy 18 and 19 says, Deuteronomy 18, verse 18 through 19. So verse 18 says, I will raise them up a prophet from among thy brethren like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in thy name, I will require it of him. Okay, so first and foremost, this is Moses. Okay, so he says, when he's talking about, I'm gonna raise up a prophet from among thy brethren, their brethren like unto me. Now, I don't know why you're connecting that necessarily to Matthew 5 and 37. I'm gonna just read Matthew 5 and 37 real quick. Matthew 5 and 37 says, but let your, you thinking of what you talking about is in John. Hold on. Yeah, you thinking of John, not Matthew. John 5 and 37, which says, and the Father himself, which has sent me, have borne witness of me. Ye have not heard his voice at any time, nor seen his shape. Okay, so real quick, nobody has heard the Father's voice or seen his shape. But you read in Exodus, the 20, Exodus, the 24th chapter, or not Exodus, Exodus 24th chapter, in verse 10, it says, verse 9 says, then went up Moses, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and they saw the God of Israel. So now who did they see? Who they saw was Jesus before he was manifested in the flesh. Okay? Just to show you that, let's go to Exodus, the 6th chapter real quick. And then I'll go back to Deuteronomy. Exodus, the 6th chapter, and verse, Exodus 3, Exodus 6, Exodus 3, and verse 13, because here Moses is in the mount before the burning bush. And it says in verse 13, and Moses said unto God, behold, when I can come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, the God of your fathers have sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, what is his name? What shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. See, that's tied into why you should be questioning him. He said, I am that I am. Who are you? Dust. Who am I? Dust. Less than nothing. So how am I questioning what God has written in his word after it's been proven to be true? So it says, he says, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am, have sent me unto you. I was, not I will be, I am. Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. John, we just go back to John. Because this is talking about Jesus. Like I said earlier, before, he's the one that created the worlds. He's the one, even when you said in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, that word God is Elohim. It's plural intensive. It's like the word family. It could be two or many. You can have two family members of a family or 2,000 members of a family. Like you had the household or the families of Israel that were huge. Why? Because they practiced polygyny. John the 8th chapter, verse 56. This is what Jesus said. He says, your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. He said, my day. How did he say that? Then said the Jews unto him, thou art not yet 50 years old, and hast thou seen Abraham? Jesus said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. You see what I'm saying? He said, I am that I am. He said, so he's basically, that's why they pick up stones and will go stone him, because he's telling them, I'm the one he was dealing with. And the Bible tells you that, John 1. So that's who they saw. They never saw the Father. Never saw the Father. So when he said, let us make man in our image, matter of fact, hold on, Genesis, real quick. Genesis, the 1 and verse 26. So it says, and God said, let us make man in our image. Who is the us? Who is our image? We're not made in the image of angels, brothers and sisters. We made an image after the image and the likeness of God. So it's saying, let us make man in our image, though. Who is the R? Now let's go to John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Both of them are God. Who was that? The Father and the Son. Now, Deuteronomy, the 18th chapter. But the Son is the one who made the worlds. The Son is the one who Moses was talking to. The Son is the one who manifested himself before Abraham. This is before he was manifested in the flesh, though. Now, Deuteronomy, the 18th chapter, Moses is telling you, a prophet like unto me is going to rise up of your brethren. Who is that prophet? We should understand that's Jesus when he came in the flesh. When you look at the lives of Moses and Jesus, they parallel one another. They was trying to kill. The higher power was trying to kill Moses and Pharaoh. Herod was trying to kill Jesus. They killed all the babies at that time. They both was meek, right? There are a bunch of parallels when you look into it. I'm not gonna get off into that totally, but I just want to read something here in So again, in Deuteronomy 18 and verse 18, it says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth. He shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. Okay. So let's go to it's the last place. Well, you got patience. Yeah, keep listening because I ain't even answered your question yet. Totally. Keep listening. This is when they found John. This is last place, John 1 and verse 43. It says, the day following, Jesus would go forth unto Galilee and findeth Philip and saith unto him, follow me. Now Philip was of Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip findeth Nathanael and saith unto him, we have found him of whom Moses in the law and the prophets did write, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Okay, so we just read what we read in Deuteronomy, what he was talking about. So who is that referring to? It's referring to the Messiah, the Mashiach, none other than Jesus. We call Jesus in English. That, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you that we're at the House of the Faith, meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel, as well as at www.israelteach.org. And if you've been edified through the ministry, you'd like to leave a donation, you can on our website, again, www.israelteach.org. 100% of the proceeds go to the work of the ministry. We are thankful for those who have continued to bless us and support us. We truly appreciate that. We don't take it lightly at all. And just know that, again, your donations go to the work of the ministry. It's not going in our pockets. We don't get paid. So with that, peace to everybody that's listening. See Sister Sharon on here. Peace to you, my brother Leo. Peace to you. No, sister, I didn't. When you say you sent a question, you send it through the email, or when did you send it? Did you send it on YouTube, or how'd you send the question, Sister Sharon? How'd you send the question? I don't recall. Email, okay. Wait, one second. That's something missed it. I don't recall seeing it. Oh, you sent on the website. Okay. Yeah, that website, the one on the website comes through the our email or the email. I'm sorry, sister. I don't even you sure you sent it? Well, I don't see it at all actually. If it's something that I don't know if you want to answer it, ask it now. If not, you could resend it or I don't know how you want to do it, but you can call, leave a message. I can answer it tomorrow if you don't want to ask right now. But I don't see it. I'm looking at it right now, and I don't see it. So I don't know if you want to let's see. The house, our email address is the household of faith, one word 12, the number 12 at yahoo.com. But I don't see your message. So if you want to send it there, or you want to try the website again, or you can leave a message on our the phone, I could answer it tomorrow. Either way. With that, brothers and sisters. Okay. All right. And with that, brothers and sisters, so is my prayer that you were edified. Like the video.